Oh, here we go. New ship. Klingon ship too. Look at it. Oh, she's big, she's beautiful, and she's bad. Oh, look at the Katinga. Oh, y'all don't know how excited I am. I love new ships. I love getting new ships. Y'all really don't know. Y'all should know. I'm obsessed with Klingons in this game, and it's my first new one in like 2 years. The first new Klingon ship in like 2 years. That's just the Katinga. Woo! I got 2 4-star uncommon ships and no regrets. No regrets at all.
Fancy intro music, yeah! Woohoo!
All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel where, as you can see, I have just gotten the Katinga. And, you know, in this video, we're going to talk about this battleship and ways to crew it and things that you can do with it. You see coming out, I've already got it, you know, and haven't even touched it yet. It is stronger than my Enterprise, but I'm just excited to have it. And one of the things that this game has added recently is things like Solo Armadas. And now there's an argument where at one point we were talking about, hey, if you're going to make it to level 46 in 6 months or less, maybe skip these. But now we're really at a point where having multiple uncommon level 42 ships is a viable strategy, especially with Solo Armadas. And then it becomes a conversation of how long or how far do I upgrade these and how far do I take them. So I'm not going to take mine too far in this video, but I will show you costs thanks to STFC.space, and we'll go over some of that. I don't mind blowing through commons and titanium here with you because, as you see in the top of your screen, I've got plenty sitting here at the moment. So we'll just kind of blow through and you can see the cost as I'm doing it. Keep in mind that this is part of research, and I like showing you these costs after my research has already been deducted and everything, so you get an idea of what the actual costs are. Because when we look at the raw cost in STFC.space, it can be a little alarming, the amounts that you have to go through. But that's one of the benefits of having all that research that you go through gets a lot cheaper. Now, one thing about these ships is very quickly you'll start needing uncommons, but more importantly, you're going to learn that uncommon materials are not the bottleneck as much as uncommon ship parts and rare ship parts will start being. Now, luckily, I have plenty of those, but that's just because I've been saving up these for a long time. Haven't done this, and I do my pulls for my ship refinery every single day. If I'm going to miss something, it's probably not that. Now, you see, I'm going to stop here because we start needing uncommon for the weapons. I'm going to wait for one of those heroic SMSs or something to come around, because if y'all remember, ore is the biggest thing I need to get to 46. So how high I will take this is going to be very dependent, very, very dependent on how much ore I end up having to spend. So I'm going to hold off on a lot of my ore here, but I'll use it for when I have, weapons or cargo bay or warp range that doesn't take that. We'll hold off on everything else for right now and then take a look at where I'm at. So, as I've gotten this, my warp range is going to be 115 as a baby, tier 2 here with the warp upgrade. That's 105 if you were level 42 and had yet to do Angel Disguise in those missions. And just to go ahead and show, let me pull up STFC.space real quick and we'll talk about overall cost here, because one thing I love personally doing is if we have a beautiful ship like this right here, and I do think that this is truly a gorgeous ship, would you like to go through the cost of operating and the cost of upgrading? So you see, if I were to take it to tier 3, which at minimum I'm probably going to push close to 5, but I'm going to be very wary based on the uncommons here. You see, raw uncommon cost for me to get to tier 3 is about 10,000. Now, easy to compare that to where I'm at because it's kind of what I'm doing here. Well, you can see that I'm going to need, 1,500 there, 1,500 there, that's 3,000, about another 6,000. And then, 7,200 is what I need, and about 11,000 was what it said. So, research, need a little bit more, a little bit more efficiency there, but that's also the ores one I've been struggling on, except for the building. I finally did my outlaw buildings or outlaw research for ore there. But back to looking at raw costs and everything. And by the way, comment if you use STFC.space. If you're not using, I don't know what the heck you're using. But if I was to take it to tier 5, raw cost being about 57,000 uncommon with 26,000 uncommon crystal, I'm not as worried about the titanium. Yes, titanium is expensive, but these are things that you can raid for, and that's what tokens are for. But the big thing, and don't let the raws scare you, is It's going to be the uncommons and then the ship parts. Look at that, 143,000. That's what's going to really be a hang up and why you should be doing your pulls every day. And I tell players, even if you're level 39, make sure you're pulling your ship parts refinery because you're going to want those. At level 41, you'll start getting uncommons, but at level 39, you can at least pull the commons because as you can see here, 562,000 raw. And you don't want to necessarily have to spend Latinum to do that. So let's go back into the ship and talk a little bit about basic crewing. We'll focus on PvP. Y'all know what the PVE crew is. It's Pipe Monroe Chin. It's the same for everything, but we talk PvP. This is going to be an old school crew in terms of like, this was the PvP meta for fighting explorers for a long time. This will eat up Centurions. Yeah, pick on the little guy, but also eat up Valdors because you got a Romulan officer and Marcus. So really good against explorers. But beyond that, this is also really good against any ship because of the 15% shield strip as well as honor guard warfare. So you got a critical build. Now the firing pattern of the ship is actually pretty interesting. At least I think it's pretty interesting because you have a massive kinetic weapon that fires every 3 rounds starting in round 2. But when it fires like it punches like woof, like it'll hurt. Like it'll just like punch you right in the throat and you can't breathe. You'll be like, yeah, sorry about that. Okay, I'm goofy, I'm sorry. But seriously, I'll make it big here, just make it easier to see. 4 big kinetic shots that'll come every 3 rounds, as well as 2 energy weapons that fire 2 times each. So you're getting 8 shots in round 2, but 4 shots every single round. So lots of damage we can build here. You're not necessarily going to build this like you would a D3 or D4 because those are all kinetic weapons, but you can still hit some really hard things here and still do like critical hull breach builds. Just don't focus them around a kinetic build. Like Kurla no longer really matters here, where you might use that in a Saladin build. But because you have that really big punch of the kinetic, you can get a lot of effect with some of these bigger builds. And one thing with it being a battleship, more hull health is generally going to mean it's better for hostile grinding compared to something like my Valdor. And if you compare them now, you see I've got my Katinga here. We're at 4 million health. Well, if I come over to my Valdor, 6 million health, but that's also tier 5. So Valdor, not that much bigger in hull health than what I have here with the Katinga. And it's only tier 2 without a lot of our upgrades and haven't even leveled it up a little bit. So if we come in here and we do our spam leveling, remember, this is going to help a lot of your, obviously opening up officer slots for lower decks, but you also get more of that wonderful juicy hull every time we level up. And that's just what we love. We love to see it. So 7.4 mil here at a tier 2 is getting beefy. Not beefy enough, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So overall cost is going to be a big hang up for a lot of players, but keep in mind that when you are talking about the value of a 4-star ship and why you should or shouldn't get another one, and why I decided I'm definitely getting a Katinga and willing to invest in it, are things like Solo Armadas. So what this means is when I hit 46, I'm gonna have a Pylum, a Valdor, and a Katinga, so I can run my Solo Armadas. Now at that point, we'll see what I'm doing with the Defiant. I'm not trying to say I'm ignoring the Defiant. What I am saying is I'm gonna have multiple options of beefy ships that are gonna help me progress in a very important aspect of this game. So now we're looking at having 2 ships that are uncommon and 1 that's a rare, and then maybe 1 that's an epic, having some actual tactical value for you as a player. And the Katinga, because it's a battleship and you have the researches now that will increase the impulse speed, like you have the outlaw impulse research and you have battleship updates, but you have overall impulse speed research in the territory tree. They're not the biggest, slow lumbering hulks they used to be. I mean, my impulse at 98, y'all got to remember that when I remember starting this, like battleships had like impulses of like 60 and 70, and they were just slow lumbering beasts. And 126 versus 98, yeah, it's faster, but it doesn't move that slow. So a lot of those negatives that we used to have about battleships and why they're problematic and why we don't use them as much are starting to fade away just a little bit in Star Trek Fleet Command. I think the Katinga is a fantastic ship, and to the point of, I wish it didn't require as much ore as it did, because we talk about it all the time. Buildings, buildings, buildings. As we push to 46, that's going to be a big thing for us. Shipyard and R&D, that's your gas, that's your crystal. But the big one is upgrading here and needing all of the uncommon ore to go into that building. The only big negative for me when it comes to going from 40 to 46, picking up a Katinga is going to be how high are you willing to take it because of the amount of uncommon ore you need, and you need to invest that into your building upgrades to get to that Ops 46. Like I said, I'm gonna take mine to tier 3, tier 5-ish, and overall PvP crews, we're looking at some of the same stuff that you normally would. Obviously, you have the strike team that is a very legit option here. I would even go as far as to say that you don't even need the full strike team, but you can. So if we just want to run an example here, this is obviously the new meta. I will go ahead and point out that this is countered pretty easily by the strike team interceptor crew. You can help that by just focusing on strike team focusing on strike team Una. The reason being is this is probably the most effective officer in terms of individual in the group. Now, strike team La'an is actually a very good officer, but this gives you a little bit more parity, and you could do something like a Lorca Honor Guard Wharf or Gorkon Honor Guard Wharf strike team Una. So you're taking advantage of critical damage in a critical build with hull breach magnifying critical damage, and then you've got this changing their shield damage transfer rate, so putting even more of those critical hits in, even if you're not doing a big piercing difference, which would be if you had Kang or Sharvanik or Marcus. Instead, you're relying on that shield damage transfer rate as your option. So there are a few different crews. The big PvP crew now that is deep into 2022 is obviously the strike team crew, but also this is one that almost every player into the 40 should already have. 3 officers, you should all have Honor Guard Worf, Marcus, and Yuki. Now there are other options as well, but these are your 2 main PvPs, and with me using this is probably going to be my tertiary PvP ship, maybe the second one depending on how feisty it gets. Enterprise still going to be that old reliable, and then every now and then using the Valdor. But PvP, PvE, you already know the crew. And Armadas, I'm going to load it out very similar to how I would load out the Augur. If y'all remember how I was loading out the Augur, I'm going to use the Cisco Miles crew instead of keeping Nero along for the burning, which I will not be using. What I'll do is probably run Kira or use a support factor where we actually do include Gorkon. We'll just be putting the Katinga here instead of the Augur, just as an example. So in terms of how you're changing things up, not too much. Focus on the strengths of a battleship, which is that massive hull health that they have and the very, very nice firing pattern of the Katinga. And there you have it. There's my new bird. I'm really excited. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you're as excited as I am about new ships. This is really, it just gets me so excited in the game to get new ships. And I'm not counting the special ships they give us. This one I earned. I ground it out. I want y'all to live long and prosper. Stay safe for the Space Cowboys. Deuces, that's me. Catch you on the next one. And real quick, before we wrap up, I'm just going to show you, go back to that call screen, STFC.space, up to tier 5. But if you want to get feisty, the highest I would really take them about tier 7. If anybody's curious how high I would really take an uncommon, that's about the max at tier 7 because of what you start getting into. Remember, once you get past tier 9, get into 10, you're going to start needing epics. And you really don't want to invest that much because these ships are not going to be that strong. Rares better suited. But still, taking it to tier 5, max maybe tier 7 at the absolute insane tier 9. But there you have it. Hope you have a great, wonderful day.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.